The city never truly slept, but in Ethan Valent's world, night was when everything mattered most. From the top floor of a concrete building that did not carry his name but answered to it all the same, he watched the streets below through reinforced glass. Cars moved in slow, deliberate lines. Men stood on corners pretending to be nothing more than shadows. Every sound, every light, every pause carried meaning. Control was not a preference for Ethan. It was survival. Inside the room, silence ruled. Not the peaceful kind, but the sharp, alert kind that kept a man alive. A long table sat unused. A phone rested face down. Two armed men waited near the door, saying nothing, breathing evenly, trained to exist without being noticed. Ethan stood apart from them, jacket still on, hands loosely clasped behind his back. He looked calm. He always did. Fear did not visit his face anymore. It lived deeper than that. People spoke about him in lowered voices. They called him ruthless, calculating, untouchable. They said he ruled through restraint, that he did not raise his voice because he never needed to. Orders left his mouth softly and returned carried out without question. Violence followed him like a rumor that never needed confirmation, yet none of them knew the truth that mattered most. In rooms full of men willing to die for him, Ethan was alone. His phone vibrated once on the table. He did not turn immediately. He already knew who it would be. Finally, he picked it up and read the message. "The date is tonight. I can't make it. I owe you, please." It was from Marco, his most trusted lieutenant. The man who had taken a bullet meant for him 3 years earlier. The man who had dragged himself back into loyalty after losing everything else. The blind date had been arranged by people who believed Marco needed a future beyond the life they lived. A woman who knew nothing about them. A clean thing. A hopeful thing. Ethan exhaled slowly. He had no interest in blind dates. He had no interest in anything that required pretending he was someone else. Connection was a weakness. He had learned that early. Caring created leverage. Trust created graves. Every personal attachment in his life had ended in blood or betrayal or both. He typed back a short response. "Why me?" The reply came almost instantly. "Because she's already there, and because you can leave whenever you want." Ethan stared at the screen. That was the danger, leaving whenever he wanted. That was how it always began, temporary, harmless. One night, he had said the same words to himself before wars started. Around him, the building hummed quietly. Money moved. Orders waited. His world did not pause. It never would. Yet something about the request settled uncomfortably in his chest. Marco was not asking him as a boss. He was asking him as a man who had no one else left to ask. Ethan walked to the mirror near the door and adjusted his jacket. Tailored, clean, neutral, no visible weapons. He studied his reflection. The face that stared back had learned how to hide everything. Emotion, fatigue, want. He barely recognized the man beneath the surface anymore. Just one evening, he told himself. One table. One conversation. No names, no truth, no consequences. He would sit, explain politely, and leave. Or maybe he would not even explain. Maybe he would simply observe what it felt like to exist without wait for a few hours. He looked at the men by the door. "Stay here," he said quietly. "I won't be long." One of them shifted slightly, surprised but obedient. Of course. As the elevator descended, Ethan felt something unfamiliar stir beneath his practiced calm. Not fear, not excitement, something closer to doubt. The idea of stepping into a place where no one knew him was unsettling in a way violence never had been. In his world, every threat was visible. Every enemy had a shape. Tonight, the danger was invisible. Connection was dangerous, he reminded himself. People left. People died. People changed. He had survived by keeping his distance from all of it. Yet as the doors opened and the city air met his face, he made a decision that would alter everything. One night pretending to be someone else. Just one. And for the first time in years, Ethan Valent stepped out of his world willingly, not knowing that the most dangerous territory he would ever enter was not ruled by guns or power, but by the quiet possibility of being seen. The restaurant was already alive when Ethan stepped inside warm light, spilling across polished floors voices, blending into a low, steady hum. It was the kind of place where deals were whispered, and futures decided between sips of wine. Ethan felt the instinctive urge to scan exits, measure distances, mark faces. He forced himself to stop tonight. He was not the man everyone feared tonight. He was only a stranger filling in for a friend. He moved slowly through the room, his presence controlled, but unassuming. Then he saw her. She stood near a small table by the window, hands clasped in front of her, as if holding herself together. Her dress was simple, clean, but worn at the edges. Shoes that had known too many long days. Her eyes kept drifting toward the door, then down to her phone, then back again. She looked like someone bracing for disappointment before it arrived. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. She noticed him at the same moment. He saw it in the way her shoulders lifted in relief, the way her face softened into a hopeful smile. "You must be Daniel," she said quickly. "I was worried I was late." For half a second, the truth pressed against his throat. He was not Daniel. He was not supposed to be here. He could end this now and walk away clean, untouched. Instead, he nodded. "Yes, please sit." The words settled between them, heavier than any threat he had ever issued. She smiled and sat across from him. "I am Lily. Thank you for coming. Blind dates are always strange, right?" "They are," Ethan said, his voice calm, steady, practiced. The server arrived, menus placed between them. Ethan barely glanced at his. Lily held hers like a shield. Her eyes flicked around the room, aware of everything she did not belong to. She straightened anyway, refusing to shrink. "What do you do?" she asked softly. Ethan paused. "Business." She laughed quietly, not unkind, just surprised. "That sounds important. I work 2 jobs, one during the day, one at night. It is not impressive, but it keeps me going." No apology, no pretending, just truth. Ethan studied her face, expecting calculation, curiosity, hunger. He found none. She did not look at his watch or his jacket. She looked at him. Something shifted inside him, something dangerous. They talked slowly at first, words careful, like steps across thin ice. Lily spoke about long shifts, tired mornings, and the way she drew in a small notebook. When the world became too loud, Ethan listened, really listened. He did not interrupt or steer the conversation. He let silence breathe. Most people filled silence with demands. Lily did not. When the food arrived, she hesitated, staring at the plate, as if it might vanish. "This looks expensive," she said with a nervous smile. "It is just food," Ethan replied. "You are allowed to enjoy it." Her eyes lifted, surprised. Then she took a bite and laughed quietly. "It really is good." The sound hit him harder than gunfire ever had. As the evening unfolded, Ethan realized something that unsettled him deeply. Lily did not know who he was, and, for the first time in his life, that felt like freedom. He was not a boss or a threat or a shadow. He was just a man sitting across from a woman who saw him without fear. He should have ended it. Then he should have told the truth or left. Instead, he stayed. And without realizing it, Ethan Valent crossed a line more dangerous than any enemy territory. He let himself be known as someone else. The night stretched longer than Ethan expected, and that alone made him uneasy. He was used to time being something he controlled, measured, and cut short when needed. Yet sitting across from Lily, the minutes slipped away unnoticed, like water through open fingers. Outside the window, the city moved with quiet patience. Cars passed, lights blurred, voices rose and faded. But inside the restaurant, the world narrowed to the space between them. Lily leaned forward, slightly, elbows near the edge of the table, as if she was afraid that leaning back might break whatever fragile balance had formed. She spoke about small things. At first, the cafe, where she worked, the regular customers who came in every morning, the woman who ordered the same drink every day. Because it reminded her of someone she had lost, Ethan listened with the same focus he gave to negotiations that decided life and death. But this felt different. There was no advantage to gain, no territory to protect, only presence. Most men spoke to him, carefully choosing words that would not offend or challenge. Lily spoke freely, not realizing how rare that was. She did not pause to calculate how her words would land. She did not hide exhaustion behind humor. She simply told the truth as it was. Ethan noticed the way her hands moved when she spoke, how they stilled when she grew serious, how she smiled before finishing a thought, like she was preparing herself for judgment that never came. At one point, she stopped and looked at him directly. "You are very quiet," she said, not uncomfortable, just observant. He nodded. "I listen." She studied him for a moment, then smiled. People usually wait for their turn to talk. That made something in his chest tighten. Silence had always been his weapon. Tonight it felt like a bridge. The conversation slowed again, comfortable this time, not empty, not tense. Ethan realized he was not scanning the room anymore. He was not counting exits or measuring threats his guard had lowered without his permission, and that realization sent a ripple of unease through him. This was dangerous. Lily reached into her worn purse and pulled out a small notebook. The edges were bent, the cover soft from use. "I draw when my mind gets too loud," she said, her voice dropped, slightly embarrassed. "I do not show many people." She opened it just enough for him to see a sketch of a woman sitting alone at a bus stop, shoulders, slumped, eyes alert. The lines were simple but honest. "That is you," Ethan said quietly. She nodded. "After night shifts." Something heavy settled in him. He had ordered men into darkness before he had watched loyalty cost lives, but this simple drawing carried a weight he was not prepared for. "It is strong," he said. "Truth always is." She closed the notebook quickly, cheeks warm. "Thank you." As plates were cleared, Lily glanced at the time and sighed softly. "I should go soon. I have an early shift." Ethan felt an unexpected pull of disappointment. He masked it instantly, of course. They stood together, and for a moment neither moved. It felt like standing on the edge of something neither had named yet. Outside, the air was cooler, quieter. The city felt less sharp. Lily walked beside him, unhurried. Their shoulders almost touched, but did not. "I usually feel invisible in places like that," she said suddenly, "but tonight I did not." Ethan looked at her profile lit by streetlight, and that was the moment he understood the truth that sent a chill through him. He did not just enjoy her company. He wanted to protect this version of himself she had awakened. And in doing so, he was stepping deeper into a lie that would one day demand its price. The street outside the restaurant felt quieter than it should have been, like the city itself was holding its breath. Ethan walked beside Lily, matching her pace. Without effort, he was aware of every shadow, every parked car, every reflection in glass. Yet his attention kept returning to the sound of her steps, the soft rhythm of someone who had learned to move carefully through the world. They did not rush. Lily slowed naturally, as if afraid the night would end too quickly. Ethan noticed the way she held her purse close, not in fear, but habit. He recognized that instinct. It was the same one that had kept him alive for years. "There is a small place near here," Lily said after a moment. "A cafe. It is nothing special." "Nothing special is good," Ethan replied. She smiled at that and led the way, turning down a side street where the lights were dimmer and the air smelled faintly of coffee and bread. The cafe was warm, and imperfect chairs did not match tables, carried the marks of years of use. A soft song played from an old speaker. Lily relaxed the moment she stepped inside, like she had returned to a place that understood her. "This feels more like me," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "It feels real." They ordered simple coffee and sat by the window watching people pass outside. Lily spoke more freely now. She talked about regulars who remembered her name, about the comfort of routine, about how small kindnesses made long days bearable. Ethan listened and felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest, a sense of belonging he had never allowed himself to want. As they sat, Ethan became aware of subtle shifts around them. A man near the counter glanced his way, then quickly looked down. Another stepped aside as Ethan passed to refill his cup. The recognition was brief, instinctive, dangerous. Lily noticed the movement, her brow furrowing slightly. "Do you know them?" she asked. Ethan did not miss a beat. No. It was not a lie, it was a fracture. They stepped back outside after a while, the night cooler now. The city hummed around them. Lily adjusted her pace again, unconsciously syncing with his. "You move like someone who is never in a hurry," she said lightly. "I learned patience," Ethan replied. She studied him then, as if trying to place something that refused to be named. "There is something about you," she said slowly. "You are calm, but not empty." The words landed deeper than any accusation ever. Had Ethan felt the pull again, that dangerous desire to be known. They reached the bus stop. Lily stopped, their hands tightening around her purse. This was the moment to leave to end the borrowed life before it demanded more. "I had a nice time," she said. "I did not expect to." "Neither did I," Ethan replied. She hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out her notebook, tearing a page. She wrote quickly and handed it to him. "My number," she said, "in case you ever want to talk again, no pressure." Ethan took the paper carefully, as if it might burn. The bus arrived. Lily stepped on, then turned back. "Thank you," she said, "for tonight." As the bus pulled away, Ethan stood alone under the streetlight, the paper warm in his hand. He knew then that this was no longer harmless. The lie was growing roots. And for the first time in years, Ethan Valent felt something more dangerous than fear. He felt attachment. Morning arrived too quickly, and Ethan woke before the city stirred. He lay still, staring at the ceiling of his penthouse, listening to the quiet hum of systems designed to keep him alive. Everything around him spoke of control, glass, steel, security. Yet his mind was not here. It was in a small cafe with mismatched chairs, and a woman who had looked at him without fear. He reached for the folded paper on the nightstand, her number written carefully in ink. He had unfolded it and refolded it so many times, the edges were already soft, that bothered him more than it should have. Connection creates weakness, he reminded himself. The rule had never failed him. His phone buzzed, messages from men who answered to him, reports that needed decisions, threats that needed silence or action. Ethan handled them with the same calm precision he always had. But beneath it all, something had shifted. The work felt distant, like he was performing a role he had played too long. He typed a message, then erased it. He typed again, then stopped. Finally, he sent a simple line: "I enjoyed last night." Across the city, Lily felt her phone vibrate as she wiped down the cafe counter. She hesitated, then checked the screen. When she read his message, a smile surfaced before she could stop it. She told herself not to expect anything. Still, her chest warmed in a way that felt dangerous and hopeful at the same time. They exchanged only a few messages that day, short, careful words that carried more weight than they should. Ethan kept his distance, never asking too much, never pushing. Lily answered between orders and customers, surprised by how natural it felt to hear from him. 2 nights later, Ethan stood across the street from the cafe, watching through the window. Lily moved behind the counter, tying her apron, hair pulled back, face tired. But focused. This was her world. He could feel it in the way she moved through the space, like it belonged to her. He should not go in. Men noticed him as he crossed the street, heads, turned, eyes followed. No one approached. Lily glanced up as the door opened. Her surprise was instant, genuine. "You are here," she said. "I was nearby," Ethan replied. "I thought I would say hello." She looked around, suddenly aware of the worn floors and faded walls. "This is where I work," she said quietly. "I know," he answered. "That is why I came." They walked after her shift ended to a small diner down the street. Vinyl seats, cracked menus sticky with age. Lily relaxed immediately. "This is more my speed," she said with a laugh. "Mine too lately," Ethan said. They talked longer this time, deeper. Lily spoke about losing her parents too early, about learning to rely on herself. Ethan shared pieces of his life, carefully edited truths that stayed just close enough to honesty. He did not tell her who he was. As the night wore on, Lily noticed small things, the way people moved aside, the way waitstaff listened. When he spoke, it planted a question she did not yet voice. Under a streetlight near her building, they stopped. "I am glad you came tonight," she said. "So am I," Ethan replied. As he walked away, the weight of the lie pressed heavier than before. He was no longer protecting himself. He was protecting the version of him she believed in. And that was the most dangerous choice he had ever made. The invitation arrived on a quiet afternoon, slipped between Lily work schedules and unpaid reminders. The envelope was heavier than she expected, cream-colored, her name written neatly across the front. She stared at it for a long moment before opening it, because nothing in her life arrived like this without a reason. Inside was a single card: formal attire, downtown one evening this week. No explanation. No logo, just a short handwritten line at the bottom. "I would like you to come with me if you feel comfortable, Ethan." Her chest tightened. She read it again. Then once more, her first instinct was to say no. Places like that were not meant for people like her. She imagined polished floors, expensive lights, rooms, full of confidence and certainty. She imagined herself standing there holding her breath, trying not to be noticed. That night, Lily stood in front of her closet longer than usual. She chose the least worn dress, borrowed shoes from her roommate, adjusted the fabric, until it fit just right. She told herself this was only dinner, nothing more. She did not know why her hands shook as she locked the door behind her. The building downtown rose like a fortress, glass, stone guards at every entrance, men in dark suits watched everything. Ethan met her at the door. He looked different tonight, not warmer, not softer, just larger, somehow more still, more certain. "You look beautiful," he said. "So do you," she replied, though her voice wavered. Inside, the room pulsed with quiet power. Conversations stopped and started as Ethan passed people, nodded, stepped aside, waited. Lily felt it immediately. The air shifted around him. She felt suddenly small. They took their seats near the front. She tried to calm her breathing. The lights dimmed. A voice rose from the stage, thanking guests for their presence. Then the words landed like a blow. "Please welcome Ethan Valent, head of the Valent family." Applause thundered through the room. Lily did not clap. She could not move. She turned slowly toward him. He was already standing. Their eyes met for a moment. Everything stopped. Head of the Valent family. Not business, not charity, not management. Power. Fear. Control. Every moment replayed itself in her mind. His calm, his silence, the way people moved for him, the way he listened, without offering anything of himself. He had known the whole time. Ethan stepped toward the stage. As applause continued, Lily stood abruptly, pushing past the row into the hallway. Her hands shook as she pressed them together, trying to breathe. Footsteps followed. "Lily," Ethan said softly. She turned, eyes burning. "How long?" "From the beginning," he answered. "The truth hit harder than any lie, so it was all real to me, and you were just watching." "That is not fair," Ethan said. "Is it not?" Her voice cracked. "You let me think you were someone else. You let me believe." "I let myself forget who I was when I was with you," he said quietly. Silence stretched tight and painful. "You took my choice," she said. "You decided when I was allowed to know." "I did not lie," he said. "I did not pretend. I just did not tell you everything." "That matters." She stepped back, shaking her head. "I cannot be someone escape. I cannot be a moment you step into and leave." "You were never that," he said. "You mattered to me." She turned away. As Lily walked out into the night, the applause echoed faintly behind her. Trust did not shatter loudly. It fell apart piece by piece. Ethan stood alone in the hallway, the sound of celebration now hollow. For the first time in his life, he understood the cost of silence. And he knew that words would never be enough to undo what he had done. The days after the gala moved slowly, like the city had decided to drag its feet. Lily returned to her routine, because routine was the only thing that did not ask questions. She woke before sunrise, pulled on her uniform, and walked to the cafe with her head down. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the truth had added weight to the air around her. She did not tell anyone what had happened, not her roommate, not her coworkers, not even herself, not fully. She folded the night away and treated it like a mistake she could outwork. But the silence followed her everywhere, between orders, between customers, between sips of coffee she did not taste. Every time the cafe door opened, part of her looked up, expecting to see him standing there, hands in his pockets, that careful distance in his eyes. The space remained empty. The bell rang and rang and rang, and he never appeared. At night, the questions returned louder than before. Had any of it been real? Or had she been a pause in a life built on power and fear? She hated herself for missing him more than she hated him for hiding the truth. Across the city, Ethan moved through his world like a ghost. Meetings blurred together, voices spoke to him with the same respect, the same caution. But none of it reached him. The applause from the gala still echoed in his mind, hollow and distant. He replayed the hallway over and over. The way Lily stepped back, not in anger, but in self-protection that hurt more than any threat ever had. He drafted messages. He never sent words that sounded weak the moment he read them, explanations that felt like excuses. He knew now that nothing he said could repair what silence had broken. Lily did not need comfort, she needed proof. Days passed, then a week, then another. Ethan stayed away. because it was the only thing left he could do without taking something from her again. He ordered his men to give her space. He watched from a distance and hated himself for knowing how to do that so well. One evening, Lily stayed late at the cafe, wiping tables long after closing. She opened her notebook and began to draw without thinking. The lines came out darker, heavier faces with guarded eyes, hands clenched too tightly. A shadow fell across the page, and she startled. It was her manager, holding a small flyer. "Someone dropped this off for you," he said it was important. Lily took it confused. It was an announcement for a community art exhibit, downtown, free admission. Local artists. Her breath caught when she saw the name, printed clearly, Lily Harper. Attached to the flyer was a folded note. She recognized the handwriting instantly. "I did not ask permission. If you hate this, I will take it down. But your work deserves to be seen, not because of me, because of you." No signature was needed. That night, Lily stood outside the community space, heart-pounding notebook. Pressed to her chest through the windows, she saw her sketches displayed simply, no grand frames, no dramatic lighting, just her work telling her story. Ethan stood off to the side, not approaching, not claiming anything. When their eyes met, he did not smile. He did not step forward. He waited. Lily walked toward him slowly, stopping a few feet away. "This was not what I asked for," she said quietly. "I know," Ethan replied. "It is what you deserved." She searched his face, looking for control, for expectation, for ownership. She found none, only restraint. "Why?" she asked. "Because I did not choose you for what you gave me." He said, "I chose you for who you are, and I should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning." The silence that followed felt different, less sharp, more open. Lily did not forgive him that night, not fully. But as she looked around at her work on the walls, she understood something important. He was no longer pulling her into his world. He was standing in hers. And for the first time since the gala, Lily allowed herself to wonder if trust, once broken, could still find its way back through choice, instead of fear. The exhibit stayed open late that night, and Lily did not leave. She stood near the back of the room, watching strangers pause in front of her drawings. Some leaned closer. Some nodded slowly. One woman wiped her eyes without knowing why. Lily felt exposed and powerful at the same time. These faces were drawn on buses after midnight, between shifts, in moments when no one was supposed to see her. Ethan stayed where he was. He did not follow her. He did not explain himself again. He answered questions only when asked, and every answer pointed back to her. She is the artist. This is her story. When the room finally emptied, the city outside felt softer. The air cooler. The street quieter. Lily stepped outside, and Ethan followed, stopping a few steps away. The distance mattered. "You did not have to do this," she said. "I wanted to," he replied. She turned to face him. "Why?" "Because words were not enough. Because I took something from you. Your choice." Lily folded her arms, not defensive, but steady. "I am not angry anymore," she said. "But I am careful." "You should be," Ethan answered. "And I am not asking for forgiveness tonight." He reached into his jacket and held out a plain envelope. No seal. No polish. "This is not from my family. Not from my money. Not from my power." Inside was a simple proposal. Funding for a small community art program. Her name listed as director. Full control. No conditions. No publicity. Lily read every line slowly. Her hands were steady. "You are giving me a choice," she said. "I should have done that from the beginning." She looked up, searching his face for expectation. For leverage. For ownership. There was none. "I will not say yes tonight," she said. Ethan nodded. "I expected that." She hesitated, then spoke again. "I will not say no." Something eased between them. Not relief. Not victory. Just space. They walked together after that. Not touching. Not rushing. At the corner near her building, Lily stopped. "If this works," she said. It works because we are honest every time, even when it is uncomfortable. Ethan did not hesitate. Agreed. She studied him carefully. Not the power, not the reputation, but the man standing still in front of her. Lily extended her hand. Not a promise, not forgiveness. A beginning. Ethan took it gently. As Lily climbed the stairs that night, she felt something unfamiliar settle inside her. Not certainty, not safety, but the possibility of choosing love without losing herself. And for the first time, Ethan understood that real power was not control. It was restraint. It was waiting. It was being chosen back. The weeks that followed did not rush forward. They unfolded slowly like careful footsteps across thin ice. Lily did not change her life all at once. She kept her job at the cafe. She kept her routine. She kept her distance. 3 afternoons a week, she went to the community space. She unlocked the doors herself. She arranged chairs. She sharpened pencils. Children came first curious and loud. Then older hands followed unsure but willing. Lily taught them how to look before they drew. How to sit with a face long enough to understand it. How to let lines speak when words failed. Ethan did not attend the classes. Not once. He kept his promise. When they met, it was outside the space. Coffee walks. Late dinners at simple places. Quiet streets where nothing needed to be proven. They talked differently now. About fear. About silence. About the cost of choosing safety over truth. Sometimes the conversations ended early. Sometimes they stretched until closing time. Trust returned in fragments. In the way, Ethan answered questions without deflecting. In the way, Lily asked without apologizing. One evening months later, Lily stood alone in the community space, adjusting frames on the wall. A new exhibit was opening the next day. Her work felt different, stronger, steadier. The faces looked back at her without hiding. You did this, Ethan said softly behind her. She smiled without turning around. I had help. You let, he replied. They stood side by side, not touching. Comfortable in the quiet, they had learned to share. I have something to ask you, Ethan said, after a moment. Lily turned. That sounds serious. It is, he admitted. But it is simple. He reached into his jacket and held out a small ring. Not polished. Not dramatic. Thin and honest. I will not ask you to fit into my world, he said. And I will not promise perfection. What I can promise is truth. Even when it is uncomfortable. And the choice to walk beside you, not ahead of you. Lily felt her breath catch. Not from surprise. From recognition. I fell for you when I thought you were just a man on a blind date, she said. That matters to me. It matters to me too, Ethan said. It always will. She took the ring, turning it slowly between her fingers. Yes, she said. But only if we keep choosing each other the same way we started. Honestly. Ethan smiled relief and quiet joy settling across his face. Always. There was no announcement. No crowd. No noise. Just 2 people standing in a room built from trust, rebuilt one choice at a time. For Lily, love no longer meant losing herself. For Ethan, power no longer meant control. They had found something rarer than safety. They had found truth. And they chose it together. The morning of the opening arrived quietly. No crowds gathered outside. No cameras waited. Only the soft sound of keys turning as Lily unlocked the doors of the community space. Sunlight spilled across the floor, touching the drawings on the walls. Faces that once lived only in her notebook now breathed in open air. Children laughed in the distance. An older man adjusted his glasses and stood longer than needed in front of one sketch. Lily watched it all with steady calm. This was not a miracle. It was work. Choice after choice. Day after day. Ethan arrived later than everyone else. He did not come through the front. He stood near the back, hand's loose expression unreadable. No guards. No presence announcing power. Lily noticed him only when she was ready. "You stayed away," she said. "I promised," he answered. They stood together as people moved between them. Some recognized Ethan. Some did not. It no longer mattered. Later, when the room quieted, Lily stepped outside for air. Ethan followed and stopped beside her. The city felt different today. Less sharp. Less demanding. "There is something you do not know," Ethan said. She turned to him fully. Her posture did not change. "I am listening." He took a breath. A real one. Not measured. Not guarded. "I am dismantling my world. Slowly. Quietly. Without noise." Lily did not interrupt. "I am closing roots. Breaking alliances. Turning power into distance. Not for redemption. Not for forgiveness. But because I refuse to build a future on fear." The words settled between them. This was not an apology. This was a truth. "You do not owe me that," Lily said. "I know," Ethan replied. "That is why it matters." She searched his face. Not for confidence. Not for control. But for intention. She found resolve. "The blind date was never the mistake," Ethan continued. "The mistake was believing I could borrow a life without consequence." Lily smiled softly. "Sometimes the wrong table leads you to the right life," she said. They walked back inside together. No announcement followed. No one needed to know. Weeks later, they gathered in the same space. Coffee brewed. Sketchbooks lay open. Laughter replaced silence. There was no stay. No spotlight. When Lily stood beside Ethan that night, she was not a poor girl chosen by power. She was a woman who chose without fear. And Ethan was no longer a lonely mafia boss, hiding behind restraint. He was a man who learned that the most dangerous decision of his life was also the most meaningful. Choosing honesty. Choosing stillness. Choosing to be seen. Sometimes fate does not arrive with noise. Sometimes it sits quietly across from you at a table and waits for you to decide who you will become.